This episode of Recording Studio Rockstars is brought to you by Atom Audio, Isotope, Native Instruments, Lewitt, and Grace Design. You're hearing my voice right now on the Lewitt PureTube microphone through the Grace Design M201 Mark II mic pre mixed through Isotope, RX, Ozone, Neutron, and Nectar, all on Atom Audio monitors. Please check out our awesome sponsors using the link in the show notes below. It's a great way to help support this show, and there's some great deals waiting for you there. Now get ready to rock.
There was a night we had a console issue. It's the best way to describe it. It wasn't really an issue. It was a ghost. That ghost of a past console reared its head in the middle of one of Phish's best versions of people's most favorite song, which is one of those things, and basically turned my audio into 4-bit audio.
Welcome to Recording Studio Rockstars. I'm Lid Shaw, and this is the podcast created to help you become a rock star of the recording studio. Hey, Rockstar, come on over here. I've got a secret to tell you. Want to know how I get a consistent sound mixing over 1,000 hours of recording studio rock stars? Well, my secret is using Isotope, RX, Ozone, Neutron, and Nectar to make this podcast sound great. Right now, you are hearing RX breath control, declick, declip, DS, deplosive, voice denoise, ozone multiband compression, neutron EQ, and limiting, all from Isotope. Use the secret code ROCK10 to get 10% off over at isotope.com. Are you recording your own music or other people's music in your studio, but you're having trouble figuring out how to get your mixes to sound great? Do they sound kind of weak or distant or lack punch and clarity? Well, I've got a gift to help you take your mixes from sounding like basement demos to sounding much closer to professional mixes. And it's my free course called Mix Master Bundle. This course will show you how to get pro-sounding mixes from your home studio with free and stock plugins in Pro Tools, and the best part is that these mixing techniques work for you in any DAW, whether you're on Logic, Cubase, Studio One, Reaper, anything you can think of. If you're ready now to make your best record ever, then go to mixmasterbundle.com to get started for free now, and you can find the clickable link in the show notes of this episode. Hey Rockstars, it's your host, Lid Shaw, and welcome back to Recording Studio Rockstars, bringing you into the studio to learn from recording professionals so you can make your best record ever and be a rock star of the studio yourself. My guest today, once again, is none other than Vance Powell.
I'm back.
Multi-Grammy Award-winning producer, engineer, and mixer, and owner of Sputnik Sound in Nashville with Mitch Dane. Vance's many credits include Chris Stapleton, the White Stripes, Arctic Monkeys, and Wolf Mother, to name just a few.
So let me point something out.
Yes, please.
The Wolf Mother record I did actually ended up, I mixed it as Wolf Mother. It was Wolf Mother. But then the other guys in Wolf Mother who weren't on the record decided to sue the label. So it ended up becoming like a solo project for the lead singer. And then I actually recorded and mixed one Arctic Monkey song. So those are all a bunch of big names, but, I just want to set the record straight that those were interesting little things that are in my bio from ages ago, probably my management trying to hit all the hot spots. But yeah. And I mixed the White Stripes. I mixed the White Stripes movie. So there you go.
Oh, right on. Yeah.
But a lot of Jack White and
yeah, that's true.
And Buddy Guy and Chris, obviously, and a plethora of other people that I could bring up.
Yeah, tons of stuff. And we've talked about it before. Of course, Vance has been a repeat guest on the podcast. In fact, you can hear
like a bad penny. I just keep coming back.
His previous episodes on number 2, 171, 293, 360, and 403, all of which are in the show notes in the music playlist below, rock stars. So please click through and go listen to Vance's discography right there and check out some of his amazing sounding records. And you can listen to past episodes with him as well. When we talked about mixing, we talked about mixing in Atmos, we talked about all kinds of things. Vance's story of getting into music and recording. Please welcome back Vance Powell, the Recording Studio Rockstars. Vance, are you ready to rock again, brother?
Oh, I'm always ready to rock.
Good to see you, dude.
You want to hear a great story? This is a good one.
Yeah, we do.
Back when I first started working for Jars of Clay, all those guys had PCs. And at one point, one of them borrowed one of our Macs and they realized they could type into it and it would talk. So they tried to pull off this gag. It was at Disney World. They tried to pull off this gag where they typed out a bunch of words like rock and roll intro words, and then they were going to play it. But it didn't quite work right. And so it was like, hey, Walt Disney World, are you ready to rock? You know, like that kind of thing. And then they sort of like hit the wrong mouse button or something and it just stopped. And so the crowd barely got any of it. And it was incredibly bad and horrible and funny.
And that was live from the stage.
It was live. Yeah. It was just a complete failure on all parts. It was pretty great.
But then along came Radiohead, and they pulled it off on OK Computer.
Well, they'd already pulled it off on OK Computer.
That's
at that
right.
point,
That's
so.
right.
Yeah. That and a lot of editing.
Now you can just have a virtual hologram of Jars of Clay up on stage doing the whole show, right?
Yeah, they would love that, actually. They would love to be a virtual hologram and go around and tour and still stay at home. So
I think that's what ABBA's doing.
Oh, yeah, of course. Well, they're ABBA. I mean, if you're ABBA, you can do whatever you want. ABBA at one
point new with you, dude?
Oh man, it's been a crazy year. You know, I took this little side gig, the little touring gig, and that was cool. I can't remember when we talked last, but
it was more recent than we thought.
That's what I thought. Yeah. So I don't know if I've talked about it, but I have had a pretty long relationship with Trey Anastasio from Phish.
Yeah.
Actually ended up co-producing their last record and getting ready to go do their next record, co-produce their next record and record and mix it on Friday. So, but I've had a long relationship with them, and they're very incredibly great people. But they have this thing that they do where they broadcast every show for the couch tour, which is basically a thing in the jam band world with a lot of these bands who people can't come to the show, but they still want to be a part of it. So Nugs has been doing it for quite a while, nugs.net, where they stream the show, either just audio or sometimes audio and video, to people all around the world. They sign in and do it. Phish has been doing it longer than any of them, basically. Yeah. And they have a thing called Live Phish, and you can listen to every show that has been played by them anywhere in the world since 2009. And a lot of early stuff off DATs, show DATs, things like that, from all the way back to where things that came off cassettes.
Yes, back in this goes all the way back to the 80s or 93. Early 90s.
So late 93. This is, 94, but 93, 94. This is their 40th year. So I think they're actually saying next year is their 40th year, but whatever.
I remember listening to those cassettes. My girlfriend at the time was like, "Have you ever heard this band Phish?"
Yeah, and they were passed around, like the Dead, but and the Phish has always allowed tapers and all that. But this is different. This is high quality video, 17 4K cameras, and an audio truck. And so I spent now, I should say, I spent the year in the audio truck. That is really a misnomer. I spent 8 shows in the spring over about 11 or 12 days, and then 21 shows in the summer over 28 days. 9 of those shows at Madison Square Garden over 11 days in New York, which was great.
Can I ask you a question about that?
Yeah.
How has Madison Square Garden recording changed? Because we had Ryan Hewitt's dad on here talking about recording back in the day, and it was like 8 sub basements deep.
It's actually 6 floors. It's 6 floors from the dock where the truck is to the stage, and it's at the wrong end of the building. Right. So if you've ever seen Song Remains the Same, where the limo goes up the big curving thing, well, that's how you get there. You have to take an elevator. It's 5 floors up from the dock, but we're actually even a little lower than the dock because we're down on the street. So, it's a long run. How's it changed? Well, we have this thing called fiber. And basically, we tie into the Madison Square Garden fiber lines that are there for, hockey games and basketball games and all that. And then up off the side of the stage where all our splitters and all that tie on the side of the stage, they run fiber over to that. And so we use house fiber down to the dock where we're at. And so that's how it all changed. It used to be they had to run lines, cables and cables and cables.
Cool thing about that, right, is that it allows you to have mic pre's pretty close to your mics, and then you're just controlling them from
mic pre's for us are all either just off stage in a rack called Bertha because it's really big.
Is that the one did you talk about like Happy Audio or something like that?
No. That's Stapleton.
That was Chris's rig.
Yeah,
right?
Stapleton's rig he has 64 Cappies into a 64 channel mothership. We have currently, I think, about 209 mic pre's. And we're getting ready to get another 150 so that my truck has its own mic pre's. The front of house has its own mic pre's. And monitors have their own mic pre's. And so the front of house and monitor don't interact. And when the front of house engineer turns up something because he needs it in the house, it doesn't turn it up to me. So
that's smart thinking.
There's other ways to do it, but this is a very, clear-cut, easy way to do it. It, when it comes to technology, one of the great things about Phish and all is that, they don't really skimp on anything. If it needs to be done, that's what we do. And it's
what
great.
is, are there any things that we want to understand about how you split a mic to 3 different mic pre's?
Well, Clare Brothers has a bunch of Jensen transformer mic splits. So they're all transformer mic splits.
And so it's not that impossible to just have a single mic and it goes through transformers and it's now coming out 3 different lines to 3 different places.
Yeah, it's not that. Well, you always have the interesting thing here is that certain pre's are connected directly to the microphone so they can supply phantom power. And then, but there's also a split. So the split has a direct and the split has transformers. So, but I mean, look, we're let's back up a little bit. We're going to split this line on transformers. There shouldn't be any change. And then we're going to send it down 1,000 foot of fiber to the computer and, blah, 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 and all that stuff. The quality is job one, but quality isn't like job one in the way that studio.
Right.
Oh my God, we put a transformer in the middle of it. It's like,
functionality is job one.
Functionality and making sure that reliability and functionality is the most important thing.
Yeah, it's a lot.
But I mean,
important.
compared to like my studio, which is very complicated, compared to the setup for Phish's live performance, yeah, man, they're way more technologically advanced than I am. Way more.
Well, I mean, I think it's one of the things that you've talked about just as an engineer in the studio is learning to be fast moving and always ready because you don't want to miss a performance when it happens. And if you're talking about live, like you really don't want to miss the performance.
Yeah. I mean, there's 21,000 people at MSG, and then there's, I don't know, a couple thousand to 10,000 watching at home.
I never realized that the name of it was MSG.
Yeah. Madison Square Garden.
Yeah. Do you ever get sick of MSG that way too?
I actually am allergic to MSG, but not MSG.
Oh, really?
No.
Yeah.
I like the Garden. It's cool. It's a cool sounding venue.
Yeah.
I mean, I have between 14 and 18 audience mics, and the room is very important to the sound of a live recording, but it's also very important to what I'm doing sounds, because sometimes the crowd is distant in big rooms, and in smaller rooms the crowd is really close. Not because they're close, it's just because the volume of the room, and I don't mean SPL, I mean literal volume, eats a little bit of the audience up. It eats a little bit of their SPL up, is what it comes down to. Volume, it's a crazy word. It actually means volume. It's funny.
Yeah. So meaning if the room is really large, it sounds like the audience is closer sometimes?
Farther.
Sounds like they're farther, okay.
Farther, yeah.
And I guess the nice thing about MSG, Madison Square Garden, is if you do find that you're missing something, you just pop up to the street level and jet over to B&H Audio and grab it and come back.
Which I did.
Did you really?
Yeah. I bought a Blackmagic 4K video recorder because I've been, the video guys, they have their own thing. They're recording 9 terabytes of video a night, right? So the next day, me asking for them to spin a HD version of that, it takes a while to do, and they got busy things to do. So they send a 4K video to me. I record it in 4K in the Blackmagic, and then I take the drive out, plug it into my rig, open QuickTime, and convert it to 1080 4K, HD video.
And that gives you something to mix too.
And then I import it into the Pro Tools session and spot it to timecode, because it's chasing code. We have code going everywhere. So
now I'm not often doing video in Pro Tools, but I've done it a tiny bit. And I know that there are some like rudimentary edit capabilities.
Yeah.
Is that true? And do you sometimes have to chop up the video along with your session?
No, because I don't ever have to chop up the session. It's, we're running on time of day. So we're actually, to be honest with you, we run on time of day -2, so that if we go over midnight, we don't have a midnight crash, because going over 24 hours is a no-no in Pro Tools. So we actually run West Coast time. And then when we get to the West Coast, we actually have to, when we were out there, we pushed it back. I set an offset in Pro Tools for an hour. So, but all that is like from where we started to where we are now, we have a much better system. So now front of house is chasing code also. So all of it, like his recordings at front of house and my recordings are all locked to code, and I'm locked to video, and the video is locked to our audio, and blah, blah, blah. So, we're running a little more like a real truck than it was before.
I remember these are all things that I remember really learning in school, and I didn't really have to practice it so much, but it's pretty intense when you start running sessions that are time code locked, clock locked, all that kind of stuff.
And we have all of our Pro Tools inputs are coming in via MADI. So we have 3 MADI interfaces. So we record 192 tracks a night. We're averaging about 145.
Well, so another comment that I want to make about that is I think sometimes when we first hear about huge numbers of tracks, there's a part of us that starts out in the studio, what the hell do you need that many tracks for? How many tracks did the Beatles have? And I think that I think you learn quickly when you're also micing up a big session in the studio or out live, you just want to have every instrument coming in.
Well, the live world is different because, I could make things smaller. I could make a submix of the keyboards. I'm actually doing submixes of all these things anyway, because we're summing through a Burl Vancouver, and then back to the broadcast. So we're doing analog summing anyway. So, I mean, I could record, 16 stereo audio tracks and be done with it. But if we need to remix something, then you don't have it. And the only other way to do it is to record every mic from the mic pre. So my tap is the same mic pre that Front of House is getting at the same level. So the next day, if I want to open the session, I just open the session, switch my outputs from the mic pre's or my inputs from the mic pre's to Pro Tools, and it just comes up and it's in exactly the same spot it was yesterday.
And are you doing some mixing while you're on the road with this stuff?
I've had to do some remixes. We miss stuff. There's been a couple. There was a night we had a console issue. It's the best way to describe it. It wasn't really an issue. It was a ghost. We had the ghost of a past console lurking in our system. And that ghost of a past console reared its head in the middle of one of Phish's best versions of one of their people's most favorite song, which is one of those things, and basically turned my audio into 4-bit audio. It was basically a denial of service. It just flooded my network with, where are you? Where are you? Where are you? Where are you? And so it was a configuration problem on our fault. We're the ones who did it. It wasn't the console. We just didn't take it out of the network. And Gary's console, Front of House, and mine communicate because he takes files from me for his recordings, and it just flooded our network. His worked.
Bummer.
But so what happened was the next day, the guys from Lavo, we have a Lavo desk. It's amazing. They came out and they're like, oh, here's the problem. And they saw what it was immediately. And so they deleted it, reassigned the streams to places where it needed to go. And then we did the show and everything worked fine. And then the next morning I came in early and remixed the entire show from the first day. And I didn't
So you didn't lose the audio, you just lost the live mix
because Gary had it. Because we recorded multiple places at once. Good thinking. Gary Brown, Phish's longtime engineer, great mixer, he records in Front of House. So I could just work off of his Pro Tools session. Mine was a bunch of crap. And because it corrupted all my streams.
Yeah.
So yeah, it was a little piecework and patchwork. And that's when I was like, I really need to see the video. I need to see what's going on. And so that started the beginning of buying the video thing. And then when we went on tour, I mean, this is terrible to say, but we went on tour for a month, they give you per diem. And it was like, I got this envelope of money. And I was like, oh, shit. Okay. So this is like 30 days worth of per diem. It's like, oh.
Like, where's B&H Audio?
So B&H Audio is down the street. And so, the $1,700 video recorder suddenly was $200.
There you go.
Bing, bing, bing.
Nicely done.
So yeah.
Look, if you're like me, then you love having cool instruments in your studio, right? No matter what style of music you make, Native Instruments gives your studio all the instruments and sounds you need, from drums, loops, and beats to the coolest synthesizers, realistic strings, guitar amps, and futuristic synth pads. I love recording and tracking real bands in my studio, but then adding awesome overdubs from Contact, Massive X, Super 8, Battery, Guitar Rig, and Hybrid Keys, for example. Use the code ROCK10 now to get 10% off, or get Complete Start for free today with a bundle of 2,000 sounds and 6 gigs of samples, all over at nativeinstruments.com. So a shout out to one of the rock stars too. I got some questions in for you too, and from Richard Masterman, his question in our Facebook group was ask him about recording Phish live. So there you go, Richard. We're getting the stories of it right now.
I mean,
and then Rockstar's also a reminder that if you want to join us and ask questions for Vance and future guests, hit up our Facebook group. Just look for Recording Studio Rockstars.
Yeah. Sorry, I interrupted you there.
No, it's all right, man.
It's
the nature of the internet.
Yeah. This gig is a challenge. They've got, they have played 800 different songs in their, different songs in their career, and there's no set list. And so I never know really what's going to be next. And for a long time, I really didn't even know how, even though you made a record with them, that's one thing, how the band's going to perform live, what songs are going to go long, what songs are going to go short, how things are going to work, where they're going to go, what's going to happen afterwards, how they transition, who plays what instrument, who's playing what on what, especially with keyboards, because Paige has a big keyboard rig. Mm-hmm. So, every now and then, part of the deal for having this and being able to easily record, punch into a mix is sometimes, we had a keyboard, not a sequence, because that's not true, an arpeggio is what it was. And when he started it, the volume control wasn't all the way up. So it ran through the whole song, but halfway through, Gary figured it out and turned up the mic pre. So we had to go back and I had to match that in the recording and then remix the first half of the song.
Clip gain.
Yeah. Clip gain. That's exactly right. And so, and that worked and that was fine. But it was an important enough part of the song that it needed to be there. And it was just, somebody hit the wrong button or something. Not pointing fingers at anybody, but somebody hit the wrong button and something wasn't turned up on the actual keyboard. So,
well, it's, it's funny because there's a part of me that wants to ask a question, is it, now you've got all these levels of digital networking to check and double check as part of recording. And, has that really changed? But then it's kind of in your experience, has the studio, you just changed, you always have to be on top of it. And there's always something that can go wrong. Has it just sort of been a handoff from the worlds of analog days to digital things? Or does it feel like it's piling on in ways with all the tech?
I'll be honest with you. When I first started, I had no idea how any of it worked. It's so incredibly complicated. I mean, the mixer can do, if it was licensed correctly, 1,024 inputs by 1,024 outputs. And just take that in for a minute. You know what I mean? That's a lot, and so we don't have that. I think we're licensed at 512 or something like that. But what it means is you can assign, your DSP energy in different places. And I think we're at 244 inputs, 64 buses, 32 auxes, and I think 32 sums, something like that. So that basically means 32 stereo mix buses or surround mix buses. We're not doing that yet, but surround mix buses. 48 or 20, however many auxes, you can have as many as you want up to a certain point, you run out. 48 buses, right? And then 240 inputs. I've got it set right now for 340, I think, but I'm only using 240. So, I mean,
so you're thinking,
and you got to think of all the inserts and how all that are all part of this, scenario of IO. And, I mean, I would love, there's a map of it all. We have a tech, on the road. He's a Claire tech named Simon Bauer. He's really, really a genius. And, he has the networking map. He has the Lavo map. I mean, the Lavo isn't, you just don't turn it on and it just turns on, it works. You turn it on, it boots its part of itself and all the networking. Then you boot the servers that run the OS that runs it. And there are 3 of those. They're remote. So they're remote and redundant, right? Then you boot the DSP, and that whole situation takes 12 minutes to do.
That's just like old school Pro Tools.
Exactly.
It's just like firing up
I
the
remember
White Tower.
I remember doing a session, my real first record in Pro Tools. I remember mixing a song for Jars of Clay. That took 45 minutes to open.
Yeah.
Shuffling DSP.
I remember those days. There was not a lot of fun. Like you knew you might have to restart the computer, but it was lunch break if you did.
Yeah, I mean, okay, open. It's just like shuffling. Things we don't have to worry about anymore, huh?
So, well, I don't know. I mean, sometimes, I get the fastest, newest computer, and then I'm like, boy, that was pretty quick that now it's slow to open again. But the question I want to ask you is, it sounds like you're recording all this stuff knowing that you need to be prepared for it to also mix in immersive or in Atmos back in your studio if you want to. Is that part of your thinking?
Well, let me put it this way. I've done some experimenting. Let's put it that way. So again, like I said, we have a lot of MADI and a lot of digital I/O. We have in the back of the truck, we have this thing called a MADI 6. That is 6 64 channel streams, MADI streams, and it's patchable. So right now, of those 6, 1, 2, 4, let's see, 4 of them, as of right now, are going to the HDIO. Well, not 4. That would be, 64 is 128. So 3 of them are going to the MADI IOs for recording. So then there's 3 other ones that are left. Another 192 channels, right? So I was just fooling around at Madison Square Garden where I was recording into Pro Tools, my laptop, into Pro Tools from the stems that I'm creating, and then the audience mics into a session that then went into the renderer, that then rendered into the Apple renderer so I could listen to it in the room on my AirPod Maxes. Mm-hmm. It sounds really convoluted, and it really was. But, we can do just about anything if we want. The problem at the moment is that to stream the Atmos, it's about 4 times the bandwidth of the audio currently to do it. It's also a $50,000 encoder to just encode the Dolby stream into the video. And, $50,000 is $50,000, to guys like you and me. I mean, dropping the bucket to Lidge, right? So,
I'll sell my podcast microphone and go get one.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah, which one? You got 2, dude. So what are you using this podcast microphone?
I've been using this MicTech PM9 since I started the podcast.
Cool. Well, you see what I'm using. So it's the new Universal Audio. Whatever.
Yes.
Whatever that's
called.
It
looks like an SM7.
It looks like an SM7, but it's not. It's white.
It is white.
I like it. It's good. It's one of those things we just have to figure out what overhead and all that. And then we have to figure out if anybody cares. Because it might be nobody cares. And
that would be for streaming the app, like an immersive experience. But you could also
that I'm
bring
doing
it home and mix it. In the studio
I could.
Oh,
absolutely, I could.
Yeah.
But I mean that 192 channel session, that's what I would mix here.
Right.
But I mean, the reality is at some point, we might want to do something immersive, and we would have to outfit the truck with speakers and monitor, control surface, monitor.
Right, because you got to be able to hear it while it's happening.
Yeah, I mean, I got to kind of hear what's going on. But, but it's not really sure yet if anybody cares. So right now, the one thing I will say is the couch fans, they have opinions on how the band sounds. Believe me.
Right.
You should see my Twitter DMs. So About the time my name showed up on the credits, it's about the time I started getting DMs. So, why is this not happening? Why do we not hear this? Blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
So,
That's
and I
funny.
had
Were
one.
you ever a Grateful Dead fan yourself?
I was not. Still not. But I appreciate it. It's
Just
funny.
thinking about
It's funny
the live
because
shows and the taping.
Well,
and all that kind of stuff.
I go out and talk to the tapers all the time. That's a crazy crowd there, but they're great.
Do they bring fancy rigs these days?
Oh my gosh. Yeah. There's a guy that's got like Sheps and like the SM or a Sheps and an M57 or an M59. And there's a bunch of them that have like 4 or 5 mics. They're recording in 5.1 and with, 5.1 recorders. And there's some hardcore. And the taper section is right next to front of house. So they get a great spot to hear the show.
Anybody show up with actual tape anymore? A little Nagra or cassette?
No, not that I've seen.
All right.
Because basically all these tapers, they're all like techno nerds. So, whatever the newest, coolest thing, except for their microphones. But nobody's really, I haven't seen anybody show up yet there's a lot of audio devices stuff there. A lot of that. But I haven't seen anybody showing up with, external mic pre's and tube mics, and except for the guy with the M57, but,
Yeah.
Or U57.
Right now I'm recording on the sound devices, which would probably be great for something like that.
Yep.
Okay, cool. Well, let's see. Do you want to tell us what's new at your studio at Sputnik? Any stuff?
Me.
Yeah,
that's what's
you're new.
I'm new.
Because you've been out on the road.
Yeah. Well, I've been on the road, but that's not really all. My wife and I and my daughter went to France for 2 weeks in September. First 2 weeks of September, by the way, great time to be in Europe. And then we went to Buenos Aires, which was not exactly a good time because it was the first week of spring. So it was kind of cold and rainy. And then we went to Rio, same thing. It's still winter down there. Although Rio was nice weather-wise. Well, it wasn't really nice. It was raining. But that was the last 2 weeks of September were master classes where I was down in South America teaching. It was actually really great. A bunch of really great guys and it was awesome. It was really great. And then I came home and went back out on the road again for about 15 days. And then I went and I did a master class at Sweetwater, which was cool because had some friends. Andy Reid was up there, and John Pines was there because he was sponsoring it. And we had some great food and we drank some great red wine and had a really great time. And then I came home and with no days off, went right into 8 days of working with my friend C6 Steve. I figured out that yesterday I did 45 days straight. So
45 days of straight of work, no break.
45 days. And then Sunday was my first break. Yesterday was my first break, but in 45 days. But I came home and did 8 days with Steve. And then I flew up to New York and did the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame with Chris in the truck with Bob Clearmountain, which was great because Bob's awesome. And then flew home on Saturday and had Sunday off. And then today I'm finishing up some Atmos mixes that I have put off for way too long. And trying to finish that up today. And then tomorrow is CMAs with Chris in the truck. I'll be, overseeing the mix in the truck or whatever. And then Wednesday, all day, the CMAs. Run through in the morning and then the show in the evening. So I can leave for a couple hours and then come back.
Yeah.
And then Thursday, I've got some maintenance to do here. And then Friday, I fly to Vermont for 12 days to do the next Phish record.
Right on. Adam Audio's S-Series, crafted in Berlin, is a flagship line of reference monitors featuring 5 models from the compact S2V all the way up to the powerful S5H. The range builds on Adam Audio's iconic heritage with new technology for improved acoustic performance. With new woofers, redesigned waveguides, and a DSP engine, the S-Series ensures accurate frequency response, consistent dispersion, enhanced detail, and a forward-looking digital connectivity. Backed by a 5-year guarantee, Adam Audio monitors embody durability and professional sound for your studio at adamaudio.com. And Rockstar's reminder, of course, we do these interviews way in advance, so
it's November.
Don't look for him on Thursday somewhere, because he probably won't be there anymore.
No, it'll be time travel.
All right. So now, last time we talked, I know you had done major changes to your studio. You built the wall, the Great Wall of East Nashville, the Great Wall of Berry Hill.
Berry Hill, not East Nashville. You have the Great Wall of East Nashville.
That's true. I do, behind me there. You've been mixing in Atmos and doing all sorts of things.
Yeah,
what do you feel
sorta.
like you've learned? Like, what if I was to say what new things have you learned about mixing this year? What would you think of? What's been new for you?
Well, what I've learned is that my current setup is going to have to change. The main reason is, for quite a while in Atmos, the offline bounce wasn't really working right with an external renderer. It just wouldn't work. And so now it is working, which is cool. But I think that what's going to happen, like I was talking about doing maintenance and stuff, like, I think what needs to happen is I need to, I don't know how to say this the other way, but exercise Atmos off my main rig. And because I'm not mixing in the box, I mix. If we're going to do Atmos or anything like that, we do stems, and then I import the stems in. And so my renderer is a remote renderer. It's in the other room. It's a Mac Mini in a chassis. And I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to, I have down, you can't see it because we're not on video, but behind me, if you could see it, there is a new Mac Mini down there that has been doing in real time Apple spatial encoding in real time. And I'm going to take that, erase it, update my renderer setup. In other words, migrate it onto this new Mac Mini. And then I'm going to put Pro Tools on the new Mac Mini, and any plugins that I have that are spatial, shall we say, incredibly spatial, I'm going to move to that iLock and move on there so that I can I can run that Mac Mini as a renderer if I needed to go back to something, or I can run it as a standalone Pro Tools system with the Dolby Audio Bridge as the playback engine. So that way, all of that stays where it stays. Because right now, moving from 96K on my normal recording rig to 48K, to getting to the renderer, to getting to all this, it's just a lot of fucking around. Yeah. That really irritates me. Also, it means that I have on my desktop behind Pro Tools, I have 4 windows open. Each one of those windows is either, where I'm sending the ADM. Then I have to copy the ADM to my Pro Tool, to my renderer machine, open it on the rendering machine, then spit out all the binaurals and all the other, re-renders and all the other shit on that. And I do that all on one screen over file sharing and all that, when I really could just mix the record on my machine, then import the stems, copy the stems over to the Atmos machine, and it's only on the Atmos machine the rest of the time. And whatever plugins I need, I'll just move the iLock. If there's plugins I don't have.
My brain might be mush right now, come to think of it, I think.
That's how I was this morning. Because strangely, from time to time, my system will open and move all of the things that go to my matrix over by 16 channels. I don't have any idea why. There's no reason why. It's same IO all the time. But like this morning, nothing would work. And I'm like, I bet it's that. I went to my IO and there was 16 channels. All of it moved over 16 channels.
In a group.
And I just don't understand it. So I moved it back and it all worked. But after fighting with that for a while and switching 96K and 48K, and I know I can do renderers now at 96, but I just don't. I'm just, not getting.
So now for the rock stars who are still like trying to wrap their brain around Atmos, generally like broad strokes, the stuff you were just talking about, it's because a story of two computers, right? Where
because I got in early where I had a renderer that was remote over Dante. So, the thing to think about is right now there's 3 layers, like, the old 3-dimensional chess in Star Trek, right? So the bottom layer is a Dante layer. You have to lay out Dante so these things go to these things. Then the second layer is Dadman, which connects to my matrix, right? So now you have to get all those things going to where they're going. Then you have Pro Tools I/O. And then Pro Tools I/O will only work if Dadman is correct. Dadman will only work if the Dante will work.
Dante, yeah.
And then it'll also only work if HDIO is correct. So all those things, all of them have to be exactly right. And for me, going between 96 and 48 and 48 and 96 for all this stuff, it's just, I just think it's overtly complicated.
Yeah.
And so now that, we're not long from Avid having a renderer in Pro Tools, so that Pro Tools will have the renderer can call up to do all this stuff inside it. Now, I don't know how full featured that is. I don't know any of that stuff. There's a lot of people way smarter about this than me. But, there's got to be an easier way to do this. And, of course, Avid folks and Mix in the Box folks are like, well, you just mix it in the box. But that just doesn't exactly work for me.
Right. You're still using the SSL console that's sitting right next to you right now.
That's right there, yeah. Why shouldn't I? It's an amazing tool, and it's an amazing sounding tool. And I can work incredibly fast because unlike everybody else who has to have a template or import a template, my template is built. It's right there next to me. And so, unless I start changing my mind, which I do, I know that aux 1 goes to my tape echoes or my tape echoes in air quotes, and that, the stereo goes to my first M7. Number 2 goes to either a PCM 70 or this spring reverb thing that I love. 3 goes to my AMS. 4 goes to loops or some other stuff that I have. All those things I know they're there and they're always there and they always work and they work immediately.
Yeah.
And I don't have to import a bunch of shit from somebody else's session and do the I/O and blah, 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 blah.
You don't have to go search for a plugin and put it on the slot.
Nope.
Yeah, that's one of the things I loved about mixing at Bonnaroo, having the studio. I mean, it always took a full day for us to set everything up, but once we had it dialed in, then it's just right there at your fingertips.
Yep.
When you needed sounds.
Well, and the reality is that, time is everything these days. So if you as a, young mixer or not even a young mixer are cool with spending 3 days working on something and your financial, your inlay, what you've got coming in for that outlay of time is good for you, then fine, spend 3 days working on it. Unfortunately, that just does not work for me.
Yeah.
And first of all, I don't want to listen to the same song for 3 days anyway. And I find myself getting to the point of being like, I've been listening to this for 4 hours. Like, how much better can it be? You know, like, you know.
Actually, that reminds me one of the questions I wrote down for you is not technical at all, but just the one of when do you, Vance, hear lyrics in a song? Do you feel like you hear the lyrics and the
Never.
song message early or at the end?
It's really weird. It depends. If I'm producing the record, I hear it immediately.
Right.
You know, if I'm just mixing the record, you know, an hour before it starts to sink in.
Right.
And
Well,
sometimes it's just poetry that means nothing to me. You know what I mean?
But do you feel like you still pick up on the mood and the intention in the mood without having to think about the words?
Yeah, of course.
The emotion of it, that's where it comes from.
Yeah. Yeah, sometimes. Honestly,
Yeah,
I'll be honest.
I've been struck
sometimes.
often how sometimes it's not until the mastering that I hear a song and I'm like, oh shit, that's what that song was all about all this time.
Yeah. I did a record with, actually, it's funny. I was in France with the Inspector Clouseau. It's this great French band that I produced. And we did a record called Horizon, and the title track, which is awesome, by the way. And I totally understood the lyric completely the whole time, but they did a video for it, and their video treatment of it still to this day kind of gets me a little fluffy. I get a little weepy because it's just so beautiful. It's really cool.
Nice.
You know, and it's about seeing the horizon, you know, but he's also talking about the possible horizons and time and, you know, all that. It's just really, really cool. And how it's a cultural thing too. You have to see the video. You look it up on YouTube, the Inspector Clouseau, and Horizon, because it's not just about, it's about, you know, how the Bedouins see the horizon, how, you know, how the Aboriginal, you know, people, how Native Americans saw the horizon, all that. And it's not, the word seeing the horizon isn't exactly what they're saying. It's actually quite deep. So check it out. It's really, really, really cool. And,
well, it's funny, you know, Inspector Clouseau, I think of shedding tears, but probably of laughter. So
yeah. Well, that's Cousteau.
Oh, right. Oh.
Yeah.
No, that's not Cousteau. That's Jacques Cousteau.
Yeah, I know. But it's still the Inspector Clouseau is what they are, not Clouseau.
Exactly.
Clouseau with a Z. Clouseau.
Yeah. All right.
Is this your dog? Does your dog bite? Does your dog bite?
Your dog does not bite.
And then he bites him.
Dog.
It's not my dog. It's one of the best gag ever.
So let me ask you this one then. What are you really excited about at the moment?
I'm excited about going up to Vermont in the middle of November, or the front side of November, and making a record in the snow. Because it's on the side of the studio, it's on the side of a mountain. So, and it's, you know, it's one of these things that, you know, we have to kind of like, the last time we went, we got this, they booked us some little, like I don't want to say a compact, but sort of like a little compact car. And we just barely made it up the hill in the snow. So, because it's up a hill. So, it's a curvy road up a hill. So we were like, we need an SUV, 4-wheel drive SUV this time.
Yeah. I don't know if you're allowed to answer this question, but you think there'll be any psychedelic experiences that accompany
There will not be.
Not for Vance.
No, not for anybody. Phish is sober. They're all sober.
Right on.
Because Trey is sober. So
right on.
So yeah, it's a get down to work and make music deal, and not a, you know.
I dig that. Well, that's what youth is for.
Yeah. Well, the audience, if you go to a Phish show, the audience is completely different.
They take care of that for you.
Yeah, they take care of all of that for everybody.
And those guys have been up in Vermont making, that's been their
Well, they're from,
they
went to college there, and that's where they're kind of Phish's home, is so to speak. But Trey he built a little cabin on this property on the side of a mountain. And down below the cabin, there was a barn out in the middle of this field. And the barn was built in 1860 or something like that.
Wow.
And so he actually went and found the owner, the barn, the farmer, and said, you want to sell that? And he was like, yep. So they sold it, and they went to the barn to take it apart, and it was put together with dowels, no nails.
Wow.
Wooden dowels. So at some point in the 1860s, they had a lathe that made the dowels, and they would wet them and hammer them into the wood and then cut them off. So they pulled all the dowels, numbered everything, put it on a flatbed, took it up the side of the mountain and put it back together on a big foundation.
I just rewatched that movie Witness with Harrison Ford, where he joins the Mormons, and they build a barn in a day out of hand dowels.
Amish.
Or Amish. Thank you.
Not the Mormons. That's a different
Not the Mormons. Yeah. That's a different podcast.
Yeah. Secret underwear.
I am massively impressed with iZotope Ozone. I've been mastering a lot of my records recently, and Ozone makes it so easy for me to get a fantastic sound. The mastering assistant will help you get started by measuring your track and suggesting all the settings you need for a professional result based on the genre and EQ curve of your choice. You can even reference a specific song if you want, using simple yet sophisticated modules like clarity, impact, low-end focus, stabilizer, imager, exciter, and spectral shaping, along with powerful dynamic EQ, compression, and limiting. You simply adjust the settings to your own taste, and it sounds incredible. And the magic of master rebalance means you can reach into your mix at the mastering stage and manipulate the vocal, bass, and drums. My bandmates are pretty demanding of my mixes, but now when I send off the masters for approval and get comments back like, holy bleep, pristine, damn good mastering, crystal clear, you're a wizard, finally I love my singing, and the drums and bass sound huge, well then I know I'm doing something right. So check out the newest Ozone, RX, and all the other great apps at iZotope.com and use the code ROCK10 to get 10% off. What do songwriters, music producers, DJs, EDM, TV, and film composers all have in common with you and me? We all need incredibly cool sounds that instantly transport the music we are creating to the style that we want. This is why Native Instruments is your ultimate toolkit with a massive library of sounds for your studio. Whether you want to create hip-hop, indie pop, classic rock, meditation music, pumping dance floor beats, or full orchestral arrangements, Native Instruments' complete bundle offers you everything you need, from drums, loops, and beats to wild synths, ultra-realistic strings, and vintage electric bass, guitars, and keys. The list goes on and on. I personally love recording real bands in my studio and then adding cool drum samples, synths, and futuristic keys from Battery, Contact, Massive X, Guitar Rig, and Hybrid keys, for example. Plus, it's a great way to make your productions sound modern and unique. Use the code ROCK10 to get 10% off or get Complete Start for free today with a bundle of 2,000 sounds and 6 gigs of samples over at nativeinstruments.com. Hey, Rockstars, we're back now for the jam session, the second half of the show. My guest today is Vance Powell, joining us from Sputnik Studios.
Sputnik Sound, excuse me. And you ready to jam, dude? Always. It's what I do these days. How long are we going? 3 hours? Let's go.
Yeah, let's go. We'll go till sunrise. We've not really, but we have some questions in from the rock stars. I always like to hit them up just before we do this, and I got at least a few here. One of which you already answered, from Richard Masterman, asking about the recording Phish Live. So is it all right with you if I jump into a few of those?
Sure.
All right. First one comes in from Charles Root, a.k.a. Chaz, our buddy. Chaz says, I'd love to know how Vance is incorporating the sounds he gets from his analog toys into Atmos mixes. Is he printing the sounds first for stereo mixes and then doing the Atmos with stems?
Yes.
Yes. All right.
Yeah, there's no other real way to do it. It's really, really, I tried. The problem is one of time, as in time delay compensation. It's really, really tough to come out of Pro Tools, through the desk, do your thing, back into Pro Tools, and then get it all in the line to go to the renderer. It just isn't worth it to try to mess with it. Print it, make a mix in stereo, make a stereo mix, print stems, go from there.
And then where can you explain a little bit about, like, so if you have the stems, why is that easier to make an Atmos mix from? Because it's now not in Pro Tools when you take the next step, or
it's always in Pro Tools. But think about the things like, okay, we're gonna take the tracks out of Pro Tools into the console, right? Now then the console, some part of it has to go back into Pro Tools to then go to Atmos. So, I can do 5.1 on my desk. It's clunky, but I can do it. But that's just 5.1. You can't, there's no way to do overs and no way to do any of that other stuff. And then you've got objects and those concepts. It just doesn't, no. Or just mix it in Atmos to begin with. Like, in other words, just don't worry about it. Just mix it in the box, mix it in Atmos to begin with. But I'm not interested in that.
So
because I'm old and stupid and I've got all this gear and I'm way faster at it and better at this than mousing around on the stupid fucking computer.
Right. No, I get that. So you mix it, you hit the console first, and then you print it as stems. Now you have a very minimalist session that you can do an Atmos mix with those stems.
Sure. I've done up to 24 stems.
Okay, cool. Dave Bales comes in with a question. He says, does his beard ever get caught in the faders?
Nope.
Why does everybody want to know about your beard every time, man?
Because they can't grow one like it.
Yeah.
Beard envy. Come on.
Beard envy.
Beard envy. I remember when you had a beard.
I did, man. I did it for a good 5,
how much of a pain in the ass is it to shave every day?
I don't shave every day.
Yeah, I don't either. But how much of a pain in the ass is it?
Not that bad. I just shave in the shower.
Yeah. All right.
It's easy. You gotta stay present, stay mindfulness, keep your mindfulness focused or else you cut yourself.
I've never cut myself shaving.
That's remarkable.
Never. I nicked my ear once because I just did. And that was because I was shaving the edge of my ear. But yeah. Now people are really fascinated by it. I don't understand why people like women want to braid it. It's like, first of all, don't grab people's hair. You know what I mean? And then every now and then, some dude will grab it. And then then
it's fisticuffs.
I sort of give him that look like I'm about to knock you in your, on your ass. And they kind of go, oh shit,
But that's also your normal look.
No, not really. I'm pretty nice. I told the story on here. The best one of all is the Les Paul story.
Tell us the Les Paul story again.
So I went to see Les Paul, Ivana Manley, Erica McDaniel, Michael Romanowski, whole bunch of us at AES one year when it was in New York, probably 2006, something like that. Went to the Iridium to see Les Paul. Ivana had a really good, maybe 2007, but somewhere along in there. Ivana had known Les Paul for a long time. So we went, and, at this point in Les Paul's life, he kind of played a little bit, told a bunch of stories. Some of them were kind of dirty, which is kind of hilarious. But, it's one of those things, like if I tell dirty stories, like dirty jokes, people are like, that guy's a creep. But if you're 86-year-old, guitar legend, people go, oh, he's so funny. It's like when your grandpa tells really funny jokes that aren't funny, or they're very off color or whatever. Yeah. So, but he was great. And afterwards he he was meeting with this woman that had known Mary Ford. They had been in Broadway together. So he talked to her. Then he turns to Evan and he says, hello, Evan, how are you? And then he locks eyes on me. I'm about 6 people back in the line. And he walks past all of them. He grabs my beard and says, God damn, boy, did you swallow a squirrel? And I said, yes, sir. And he goes, why? I just don't understand why. I said, it just happened. He goes, yeah, I guess. He turned around and walked back. And then when I got up to him, he just said, I'm sorry, I grabbed you. He goes, it's actually kind of okay. But yeah, so that's my Les Paul story.
And that was Les. Wow.
Yeah.
He played your beard. Was it his picking hand or was it his fretting hand?
It was his right hand. So, picking.
His red right hand.
Yeah.
All right. So that's a great story.
He gave it a pretty good jerk too. I mean, he kind of got a hold of it.
It was my niece that used to do that. She, Izzy, used to grab my beard and she'd yank on it until I finally had to
knock the crap out of her.
I had to be a mean uncle.
Yeah.
Just get her to stop.
Stop.
Stop it. Still love you, Izzy. All right. So this comes in from Christopher Hughes. Christopher says, would love to know how Vance approaches the low end in his mixes and productions. I always feel like his low end is so unique to most rock producers. It's more along the lines of what I always want to hear as right, which is huge and sort of soft sounding, but still punchy. I just think the kick drums and bass on his records always sound so great. And Vance, I was complimenting you on the Chris Stapleton records last time we did this for the very same reason.
Oh, thanks. I'll tell you what, I think it's 20 years of mixing live sound and having to sort of, the funny thing is you spend if you're doing live sound, you spend the first 5 years of your career playing in clubs and bars. Okay. Usually the PA sucks. So to get a band that sounds good, rocking, you have to find where your low end, how much low end you can get, right? And that sort of determines your SPL because it's easy to make guitars and shit like that loud and vocals and things. It's hard to get it all balanced with it where it sounds big and deep and, the kick drum hits you in the chest and the bass is rumbling your butthole, if you're into that kind of thing. But as you move on in doing live sound, it gets easier. And the reason it gets easier is because you get on bigger PA systems. And then it's not quite so hard to do that, to make the low end happen. I think for me is I always still just hear music like a front of house guy. Now, I'm not ignorant to the fact that most of the times when I hear live bands, the kick and snare are too loud. I've moved past that being the focal point of my, mix. But they're very important. I guess the biggest thing that I do is I don't cut too much.
Mm-hmm.
I just leave a lot of that rumbly jumbly shit in there. And I also have been known, especially like on the Chris stuff, to add a lot of low end, like a lot of 100 cycle to the snare to get that big, deep snare, because otherwise, snare drums, a snare drum is like a tom with snares on it, but it's a small tom. So to get it deep, you have to either tune it way down, which means it doesn't snap, or you have to put some low end in it. And then I'll do a really solid high pass at like 60, 24 dB at like 60, because I may be adding 10 or 12 dB of 100.
Mm-hmm. Wow.
And 250. So quite a bit of 250.
As a shelf?
No, just like, at 100, I'm adding a peak at 100. And then I'll add a little bit of 250 because 250 is where that cool low ring is, that's what I do. But I tend to not cut a lot of the kick drum out. I kind of leave all that rumbly jumbly unless the drum sounds bad. And then I usually try to find another drum or tune it or something. But, and I do like solid front head. I don't put a mic inside and a mic outside and, all that. I usually put them both outside the front head. So, to me, I like the sound of the whole drum,
So part of the secret to a big kick drum that sounds like it's got air and just doesn't sound like a pointy beater attack is leaving the front head on there and
make sure it has air.
Don't stick a mic inside there pointed at the beater.
If you want to put one inside, put one inside, but just know it's going to be out of time with any of them that are outside. So you got to futz around with that whole relationship, and it's funny because like if we go to classic rock records, right? We talk about Glenn Johns and how he did things. There was a 67, like 3 or 4 feet out in front of the kick drum. You know why? Because that's where all the low end is.
Right.
It's out there a little ways. It's not right up on the head. Never is. It's always out a little ways.
Well, and the thing about that I feel like I'm always rediscovering is if you use a condenser mic out in front of the drums where the low end is accumulating and it's pointed right and it's the right kind of mic, you're going to hear some beater. It's going to come through. Like some of that attack will make it through in the right kind of way.
Yeah. Well, it just, man, the thing with drums is one man's boy howdy is another man's far out. But what people like is so different. Up at Sweetwater a couple weeks back, I did my sort of typical rock drum miking technique. All right. So I'll tell you exactly what everything is. It was a FET 47.
We're ready.
FET 47, a D12, or if I have to use it, a 112. We did have an NS10 sub-kick thing, but that was really more for a show than things I use all the time. Sometimes I'll use it, but sometimes I don't. 57s, top and bottom on the snare, KM84 or 184 on the hi-hat. I have a favorite hi-hat mic, but unless I'm at Blackbird, I don't have one, and that's a C12. I know. Not like a $25,000 mic on the hi-hat. The one instrument in the drum kit I hate the worst. So, and then tom mics were, I think they were the Earthworks, the D4s. I brought those. There's some really nice Audio-Technicas I've used, little clip-ons. I'm not a huge fan of 421s, but, if you got them, that's what you are. 409s are cool. Nobody really has any of those anymore. 609s are okay, whatever. 87s are kind of one of my faves for toms. I always mic the top and bottom of the floor tom. And then there's some phase relationship things with those in the overhead. For the overhead, I always use an R88, and the R88 is almost always inverted phase or inverted polarity from normal, because part of the deal about drums is free low end. You want to get free low end, and there's tons of low end out there, but you need to flip the phases. Now we're talking about flipping the polarity of the microphones to get them more phase aligned is what I'm getting at. So often if I flip the overhead, because that makes the snare bigger, I'm going to have to flip the top of the floor tom and sometimes the top of the rack tom. But the rack tom's a little higher, so sometimes it's okay. Mm-hmm. And then the bottom of the floor tom, of course, would be inverted from whatever the top is.
Yeah.
And, if you have a hard time getting that floor tom really big and nice, just put a mic on the bottom. You'll find it. It'll be there. It'll be great. Yeah. And then I have a little knee mic trick that I do. It's all over the internet. You can look it up. And then I usually put a Coles out in front of the drum set, kind of like you can kind of lean back and see it between the bottom of the rack tom and the top of the snare, just kind of out to the side a little bit. And that's usually a Coles right on the floor. And that's the normal rig. That's my normal miking. But for this little deal, we used the new Mojave MA37, which is a C37 tube, C37A copy, and that Mojave makes. I used one of those above, and then I used my C37P, which is a FET phantom-powered microphone, out over the floor tom. And I have this real hardcore deal where I hold three drumsticks in my hand and measure from the center of the snare to the top to the mic, and then I just lay it over, and then that's where I put the floor tom one, right? And then I was showing them, so the class there, okay, so here's this whole microphone, listen how bombastic it is and all that. And then here's this. I'm just going to put the one kick drum, the FET, and the two Mojaves in. And everybody kind of went, oh.
The S-Series by Adam Audio, crafted in Berlin, is a flagship line of reference monitors, blending advanced engineering and in-house design. With 5 models in various sizes and configurations, these monitors build on Adam Audio's iconic heritage while incorporating new technology for improved acoustic performance. The range includes the compact S2V with the 7-inch woofer, the 3-way S3H with twin 7-inch woofers, the vertical S3V with a single 9-inch woofer, and the powerful S5H and S5V main monitors featuring a 12-inch woofer and exceeding 131 dBSPL per pair. Despite differences in size and power, all these models provide highly analytical sound for professional audio applications. The S-Series includes new woofers, mid-range drivers, redesigned waveguides, and a DSP engine for crossover optimization. The result is accurate frequency response, consistent dispersion, enhanced detail in bass and mid frequencies with wider frequency ranges, and forward-looking digital connectivity, all in a durable design. The S-Series ensures longevity in your studio, backed with a 5-year guarantee at adamaudio.com. So that was just the 3-mic version?
Just a 3-mic version.
Which is kind of the, it's kind
Glenn
of
Johns.
the Glenn Johns or,
Yeah.
But the distance from the snare to the overhead or to the floor tom mic, there's a similar distance.
Yeah, and then you hard pan them, which doesn't make any sense.
Which leaves the snare in the center.
Sort of, but yeah. And it makes the toms, you hear the toms, the floor tom, you hear all of it. I mean, it's really a brilliant deal. Now, you know, is it as bombastic as all that other stuff? And then I had room mics, had 3 room mics, and you know, so, I mean, you know, all that stuff fits in. But, you know, for the track that we were playing along with, it didn't really fit. But I was like, hey, just kind of do like a, you know, kind of like a track you would play on like a pop song or an Americana song. And so the drummer was playing along, and I was like, now see, this would work just fine. This is 3 tracks. And then here's the room mic. I turned the room mics on. I turned them down 10 dB, and it was just like, oh, that's really sounds great. No compression, none of that. Just, you know, just what it was. You know, Glenn
it allows the drum kit to breathe a little bit.
Yeah, Glenn wasn't an idiot. He tried it and figured it out, and it worked. And he made it on all his records sound like that. You know, listen to Who's Next, man. Whew. Man, it's awesome. The drums are so cool sounding on there. And there's 3 microphones.
So now you essentially described 2 different miking, one with the R88 as a stereo overheads plus the close tom mics, or this alternative sort of Glenn Johns 3-mic thing. Yeah.
That's why I mean, it was for demonstration purposes. So
yeah. No, that's great. I just want to make sure the rock stars are following that too.
But you can do it all at once if you want. It's just, you know, it's just a phase thing. You just got to make sure it all works, you know?
Yeah. Everything works together.
Yep.
Your overhead has got to probably have to be aligned with that R88, or they have to be similar distances.
You want them to be anyway. So that's kind of what I do with the R88. So
now let me ask you this question. When you're miking up the toms, do you find that the crash cymbals can be a real issue when, you know, somebody does the tom fill and hits a crash on the one and that's bleeding into the tom mics?
Not
or
if
is that just a sign
if you're using the right mics.
Because they have a good rejection on the back, or they just don't sound so bad off color?
Yeah. Yeah, they just don't sound so bad. 421 sound terrible off axis.
Do you sometimes have to coach a drummer in terms of putting cymbals up higher or any of that stuff?
Yeah, I just take cymbals away from them.
So
cymbals
when the
are
what
cymbals are what drummers hit when they don't have a better idea.
Yeah.
I know. Drummers hate me. It's okay. I'm all right. Yeah. Drummer's perspective, never.
Okay. All right. Fair enough.
Well, let me ask you a question. Okay, drummer's perspective. You want me to mix the record drummer's perspective? How about I mix it guitar player's perspective? Does that make sense? Or what if I do it vocalist perspective? Does that sound like a good idea? Or bass player's perspective? Why in the world would we do drummer's perspective? There's only one reason in the world, and that's so people can play air drums. And that's not a fucking reason to make anything the way that it should be. Also, secondly, I never want the hi-hat on the left, unless the drummer's left-handed, which always fucks me up. So I have to put it over there because that's where the hi-hat is. Never drummer's perspective ever. It doesn't make sense.
Looking at a stage,
That's exactly right. I mean, for that matter, drums shouldn't even be in stereo because if I point at the drums, they're right in front of, they're right there.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. Fair enough.
These are just my little things.
No, that's good.
Your mileage may vary. Your mileage may vary, and objects in the mirror are closer than they appear.
My mileage varies every session. That's what I keep finding.
Yep.
Let me ask you this then, related to drums. What's new for you? What have you discovered recently that has got you interested, or something new you're trying different on drums, that kind of thing? Nothing. All right.
No, that's not really true. I mean, every now and then you get a new mics, I've been doing the last few, these things. I've been doing a left, center, right room mic. So, so there's that.
Do you ever think about mic placement for Atmos mixing?
Absolutely not.
Fair enough. All right. Well, let me jump to the next question. This one is our last question, actually, in the Facebook group. So this one comes in from Jonathan Day, who says, does the kind of cabling you use matter, i.e. expensive X brand name versus cheap? And does the number of connections in a signal path matter, i.e. mic to XLR cable to wall jack, XLR patch bay to DAW, etc.? And he signed it, thanks in advance.
Well, the answer is absolutely and not at all at the same time. Yeah. First of all, you should have the best cable. You should buy the best cable you can afford. Okay. For a lot of classic studios, that was Belden 4311, some Belden cable that had a braid over a foil shield with 20 gauge or 18 gauge stranded wire. Okay. Now that cable is not what I would say is really a hi-fi cable. We did some testing at Blackbird where we bought 1,000-foot roll of that cable. I don't remember the number right now. We bought 1,000-foot roll of this alpha solid core wire that people were touting. We bought 1,000-foot roll of Canary quad cable. All right. And at the end of each end, we wired up a microphone cable, a male on one end, female on the other. So at one end of it, we put one microphone on an acoustic guitar, and then we recorded 4 passes of the acoustic guitar, each one of those going through the 1,000-foot of cable. Now, the interesting part is we started with the cable still on the reel. Okay, so this was, and then there was like, oh God, it's going to cause all this.
Right, a coil
and all that. But the reality is it's not. But okay, fine. Let's just say it doesn't. We did all 4 of these. Okay. Now, the exact same microphone, the exact same mic pre, the exact same acoustic guitar player playing exactly the same thing. So first we did that and people were like, oh, wow. And then we did it as close as we could to an ABCDX test. All right. As close as we could without having a box and have the random generator and all that bullshit. Okay, cool. So then it was like, well, we really need to see if this reel matters. So we took the wire off the reel and we ran it around the building and around to the parking lot and around and then back into the building and all that. So it was just running, across the same thing that they were all running across the floor, the ground, some concrete, some dirt, some grass, all that.
Meanwhile, you guys are saying, yeah, Amazon will take this back. Don't worry about it.
Yeah. Well, no, it's not how that place worked at that point in time. And we listened to it. And of all of them, one of them was the winner. And that's what we wired Blackbird with, 148,000 feet of it for Studio.
Wow.
Okay. What was it you're asking? Oh, you're not asking? Okay, so maybe I shouldn't tell you. What do you think it was? What do you think it was?
I think it was the straight wire one.
It was solid core.
But it's a cheat because I worked in Studio A, and I think I remember you guys
it's
telling
28
me
cents a foot.
Special kind of straight wire thing.
It's solid core.
Solid core.
Solid core. It's 28 cents a foot. So it's not cheap, but it's not expensive either, right? You just couldn't buy it in multi-pair. So the reason it got so expensive at Blackbird is because we didn't use 8-pair cable or 24-pair cable. It was all individual runs.
Wow, man.
So 148,
that's a lot of labeling.
148,000 feet in Studio A. But the deal was, look, you've got solid core wire, you've got less capacitance, all that stuff is important in long runs. And in studios, big studios, we would use a 650-foot run per mic line in the new build in the back of A, to the patch bay. 650 feet, almost a whole reel, because it had to go up the wall, all across the ceiling, across another ceiling, into another building, then down into the wall, across the floor, and up into the patch bay. So that cable was really important. Now, how different were they? Well,
not as different as a wrong note.
Yeah, well, there was a difference, but that doesn't mean that it was right or wrong. To be honest with you, the quad cable, the low end, the low frequencies felt a little tighter to me. But overall, it was the top end that won. Mm-hmm. It just felt like the solid core wire had a better top end. Now, do I have it here at Sputnik? I have some, because at some point I bought a bunch that was spare, not spare, but left over off the reel, like in a big bundle, like, here's 250 feet of it. Okay, cool. I'll use some for these patch cables or whatever. And so I bought some excess from Alpha. What do they call that? End cuts or end runs or something. They had they have a name for it, that aren't on a reel. It's where we're like, okay, well, we're going to make it. Okay, they make 4,000 feet of it, and then they go, oh, we can make 5,000 feet. And then they get to the end of 5,000 feet and they don't have enough to make it or something. So there's 100 feet here that they have to cut off.
Right,
So, I bought a bunch of that.
Is it hard to bend if it's
solid? No. It's easy. It's easy to work with. It's real easy. That being said, that's not what I wired most of the studio with. I think I used, I think it's called Acoustica, some 8-pair. I bought a bunch of that, about a couple thousand feet of that when we wired this place up. And it's 8-pair. And it's great. It sounded awesome. It's not Acoustica. It's oh, hell.
I know there's a lot of different brands out there. I one that I have some mic cables here. It's called Wire World, and they really sound excellent too.
Yeah, I think I went to Wire World next to. Never mind. Not to make a bad joke.
But the funny thing about wire is, I think part of the answer is when you build the very first stuff studio you do, the first time you get gear, you just use whatever the hell cable you can get a hold of and afford.
Well, I mean, now, I think 24-pair Megami is about $40 a foot.
Wow.
Yeah.
Is that good or bad?
That's bad. Yeah, it was about $24 a foot back in the Blackbird days.
Yeah, that does sound really expensive.
Yeah, well, I mean, think about it. It's 24 pair. and it's $40 a foot. So 10 feet of it is $400.
Yeah, that's expensive. And 10 feet doesn't get you very far.
10 feet doesn't get you anywhere. So, yeah.
So it does raise another part of that topic that you were talking about, which is fiber runs. You know, if you can think about your home studio, rock stars, you know, when you've got modern houses anyway that already have Ethernet running, you know, you could also consider just setting up your studio where you put an interface in each room and you sort of control it all.
Yeah, I mean, you can do Dante. I have a DAD Core 256, DAD, Digital Audio Denmark, Core 256. It is Thunderbolt 3 or 4. It's to 256 inputs and outputs over Dante or Maddie or Dante and Maddie or Dante and Maddie in this thing they have called DAD Link that connects to another DAD box. And basically, you know, it's Ethernet. It's all Dante. So you get 128 channels per Dante interface. It has 2 Dante interfaces on it. You know, you got 128 channels times 2 there. It also has a MADI interface on the back of it. That is Ethernet, not Ethernet. It's a RG56 MADI, not a coaxial or not a optical, not a fiber. It's a MADI over RG56, you know, a video cable. And you get 64 channels out of that. So, and the latency is tiny, like, you know, sub millisecond.
Yeah.
Really, really fast. How does it do that? How do you get, you know, you can get 340 channels of 48K audio down 1 gigabit Ethernet cable. That's a lot.
Yeah, no doubt.
You know, that's 128 channels each way, coming and going. That's pretty impressive.
If the latency's low enough, it doesn't bother you much more than other latencies.
Yeah, I mean, it's a millisecond because networking, everything is fast in networking.
Yeah.
You know.
But I will say if the latency gets up above that at all, you're going to hate it. And
no, you're not.
I wouldn't want to play through.
Do you have
3 milliseconds?
No, 3 milliseseconds? What are you talking about?
I put on headphones with 3 millisecond latency.
Whatever, dude. Whatever, dude. You're high as kite. You're high as kite. I mean, I know people today who in this town are making records with a hearback system that's about 14 milliseconds.
No.
Yeah.
Well,
I think if you came to my studio and sat right here and I gave you a guitar and said, cool, play along, you could play along and you'd play overdubs and everybody else that comes in here. And there's 11 milliseconds of delay because of my turn off.
Because of what?
The turn off.
Right. Yeah. I have,
you wouldn't hear it. Nobody hears it.
Yeah. Yeah. I have the Carl Tatz set up here and there's a little bit of, you know, there's digital processing on the way to the speakers too. And it doesn't bother me at all in here.
Yeah. You know, people say, oh, I can hear a millisecond. I can hear it. Well, you can't if you're singing. You know what I mean? Right. If it's 11 milliseconds and you're singing, it's 11 milliseconds late. But, you know, some of that hearback stuff, like if you go out analog and then go into it analog, it's not immediate.
Yeah. Well, because you're adding the additional conversions too.
Yeah. But a lot of people, that's what they're doing.
But I mean, it's what you're talking about too with these Ethernet systems is the actual signal over Ethernet is pretty damn quick.
That's what throughput. I mean, like I said, it's sub a millisecond on the DAD box.
Yeah, that's
pretty fast.
And you think about this. On the cable
think about this. If you put 1,000-foot cable on it, it's just as fast.
Because 1,000-foot analog cable, because the time delay of just getting through there.
Yeah, speed of light.
Yeah.
1,000-foot cable. I mean, a 1,000,000-foot cable, you might get some latency.
Right.
But you're not going to find one of those.
Yeah.
But I mean, 1,000-foot cable at the speed of light. I mean, we could just do some math here.
Do you ever feel like the time that you've spent watching YouTube videos, trying out mix tricks, and tweaking version after version of your mixes has gotten you nowhere? Have you been looking for a simple, straightforward, step-by-step process for creating a pro mix that won't take you years to learn? What if you could have a Grammy-winning mix engineer who understood all your mixing struggles and could coach you through them? If you struggle with any of these questions, then the Ultimate Mixing Masterclass is just for you. Now you can discover the proven step-by-step mix system from Grammy-winning mixer Craig Alvin for consistently creating a pro-quality mix from your home studio that will sound amazing everywhere. Listen to this quote from one of our students, David. Quote, "Absolutely the most informative and helpful block of information and mentoring on the mix process that I've ever been a part of. That was like sitting behind a mix engineer for years, watching and picking up tips along the way, but condensed into a 6 to 7 hour session." Close quote. Look, I'm so confident that this will take your mixes to the next level that if you can't get a killer mix within 30 days, I'll give you a full refund, no questions asked. So if you're ready to take your mixes to Grammy-winning quality, then go to ultimatemixingmasterclass.com and start now by checking out the free preview of the Ultimate Snare Mixing Trick. And I'll see you at the front row table of the Grammys. Cheers. There's one other thing I wanted to add to the cabling question, which is the reminder that we also have the option to just put the mic pre's out close to the mics.
Yeah.
So it's a single, quality cable from the mic to the mic pre. And then at line level, I think you get away with a little bit more than you do.
Well, yeah, line level, you don't really have to worry about too much of the line level. There was a whole thing at Blackbird in Studio D where they used a piece of 6-strand solid silver cable just wired onto a solid gold pinned XLR in the tracking room, ran it through the floor up to a patch bay because they wanted to get the best possible cable. So they soldered it to a nickel patch bay that then went through a cable, an alpha cable, to a mic pre and another 50 feet of alpha cable. And so that cable didn't mean shit, because it didn't matter. And the reality is that it often doesn't matter. And if you think you can hear it, man, let's do an ABX test. It's like $1,000 IEC cables. You think you can hear it. That $1,000 IEC cable plugged into the $6 outlet into like a $12 piece of Romex going to a breaker.
The magic power cables.
You know what I mean? Like, yeah, man, you think you can hear it. Now, speaker cable, I can hear speaker cable.
Yeah.
I'm a little nerd about speaker cable, but I'm not a super nerd about it. I mean, Blackbird's got those $10,000 Valhalla cables, and I hook them up to NS10s just to be funny,
So, let's see. Here's what I was going to say to add something to that too. Agreeing with you, Jonathan. Consider that was who asked the question about the cabling.
Thanks, Jonathan.
Consider this: when you set up your studio, maybe don't sweat it too much at first because expensive cable gets expensive. But do consider this: do possibly think about setting up your studio in a way where it's not too impossible for you to swap the cable later. So if you're using a D sub patch bay or something like that, and you get a better D sub cable.
Yeah, I would say spend real money on the D sub cables. I hate to say it, man. I just buy the Mogamis. They're really stupid expensive, but they are great, and they will be great for as long as you live.
Right, and then the other tricky thing to learn about D sub patch bay cabling and stuff like that is it's pretty expensive to have to rewire your patch bay. And so your studio is likely to evolve, so it helps to have that flexibility.
Yeah, I have.
D-subs.
See, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I have 6 96-point patch points. You can see on Ledge, but nobody else can. Yeah. They're right there, and 4 of them are Elcos, and one of them is hardwired to fan outs. And then one of them is D-sub. And the last one, the D-sub one, I started out with just like 16 channels of I/O. And then I just kept buying more until I just have the whole thing.
Yeah.
So, and stupid Mogamis are expensive.
Yeah, cabling is expensive. Wiring up a studio is expensive. Sometimes getting new gear
You should see
is
my
exciting.
basement. You should see my basement. You should see all the cable in my basement that's not being used.
Yeah,
that's what happens when you have you've had three consoles in 20 years.
Yep. Yeah, I got a similar thing. What are some of the most common questions you get from students? You've been out there teaching. You get a lot of questions, Vance. You've been on many podcasts.
Strangely, there's a lot of the things are, how do you get paid?
Yeah.
How do you set your rate? How do you know when mixes are done? How do these are all things that are are really important. How do you get paid? Well, don't do anything for free ever. That's how you get paid. It's strange, but as Richard Dodd, said famously to me one time, if you work for nothing, your work is worth nothing. So there you go. The other things are, how do you know when a mix is done? I usually sort of feel like a mix is done when I think the last thing I did to the mix made it worse.
Mm-hmm.
So that's usually when I'm like, oh, let me undo that. And then let me listen to it for 20 minutes. Just play it over and over 20 minutes while I surf Twitter or X or whatever the stupid shit's called now, or whatever. You know what I mean? Like, while I do something that disconnects my brain from this speaker thing, but I disconnect my eyes from what I'm doing, listen passively to it, passively. And that's when I find things that I'm missing. And then I'll tweak those and get those. And then I usually just send a mix to the client and just be like, I'm going to send it to the client. And if he hates it, I get fired and I'll go about the rest of my day. Or if not.
Excellent.
And, the other thing is like I tell artists all the time, I have a good friend that I've made a lot of records with, and he was here for the mix. He sat here and he, was all for the mix. And, 25 minutes literally after he left and I left, he's like, hey man, is that still up? Can we still tweak? And I said, nope, I'm gone. I'll leave tomorrow morning. Just like a good tea. Just let it steep. Just let it steep. Let it sit for a week, dude. Don't listen to it. Come back and listen with fresh, not ears that are like, oh, I want to get my hands in there and I want to make this louder. Oh, I want to make this louder. Because it's always about making something louder. Always.
Right.
Just let it steep. Let it just sit for a bit. Because I can tell you right now that back in the days before recalls and before the instant gratification of Pro Tools, you made a mix, put it on cassette or CD, the band took it home, and then it went to A&R and blah, blah, blah. And then maybe they came back and said, we really feel like the chorus isn't hitting hard enough. It was big moves, big things. Not like, I feel like the hi-hat could come up here in this 12 bars here, and also could come down in these 12 bars. And then there's a sound, and that sound needs to be louder. It's none of that, because none of that shit fucking matters ever. It is never what makes the record. Does it feel good? Can I hear the words? Is it a good song? Does it sound good?
Do I like the singer?
Do what?
Do I like the singer?
Yeah. Well, even if you don't like the singer, is it cool? You know what I mean? There's a lot of cool records that I didn't like the singer, but or they didn't even sing. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
From the 80s, there's a lot of them that I love that nobody was singing. They were just yelling. But did it make me want to drive fast and punch people in the mouth? Yeah, it did. Perfect. Good. Makes us great. Revisionist history is the worst kind of history. It's fun after a while to go back and remix something. I do it every now and then with Pure Mix. It's fun. I go, oh, why in the world would I have done this? Well, the moment I'd heard something somewhere, something influenced me to do this. Okay, cool. Well, maybe it's not that way now. Like maybe I don't want to do that now, But as far as like tweaks, like I rarely hear a record a year later and think about my mistakes. Nobody does. Nobody listens and goes, oh man, that's a huge mixing mistake right there. These vocals should have been louder. The reality is that those probably got caught somewhere in the process, and if not, there just wasn't the budget to fix them. Was there more budget in the Kingsman version of Louie Louie to maybe get another microphone for the record?
A vocal up where we could hear the lyrics?
Well, it's one microphone. That's the deal. It's one microphone. So it's one track, it's one microphone, and it's an iconic song that you can't understand the words because there's only one microphone. So
Peter Jackson to the rescue. Come on.
Yeah. Well, yeah, exactly. But I mean, the fact is that, man, it doesn't matter. If the feel's right, It's great. So,
all right. So what about this riffing on that idea of students asking you questions? Do you feel like there are any key skills or qualities that you think are essential for success in
troubleshooting? Troubleshooting. Being able to understand the chain that you are working on when it doesn't work.
Which is
sometimes always. Yeah. I mean, let me tell you, man, nothing like having to troubleshoot shit when you're on the other side of the Atlantic or the other side of the equator or 50 miles or 100 miles from the nearest guitar center.
Yep.
Bonnaroo.
Bonnaroo. In a hay bale studio.
Yeah, but I mean, even Bonnaroo, dude. I mean, look, the reality is, if
we always called up to Nashville and then see who could pick something up and drive it down, and then we turned to the management and said, "Can you get them a free ticket?" And that was our solution. For fixing studio
now, what you do is you're like, "Hey, can we get it on the Uber helicopter?" But I mean, the reality is I mean, Mike and I, we went last year into this record to Norway at Ocean Sound, and we're on an island in Western Norway. The ocean is 30 feet from the control room. All of that is beautiful. But you know what? If you don't have a tuner, it's hard to have a session.
You have to send a Viking to go pillage a neighboring village.
You literally almost did have to do that, because they had a tuner pedal and it broke. And it was like, okay, well, try it with the battery. Nope, that didn't work. Okay, try it with the power. Okay, that didn't work. It's like, okay, well, the nearest town is Ailsund, and there's a music store, but not on Sunday.
Can't you guys just meditate and tune into the vibrations?
We tuned to the piano that hadn't been tuned. We tuned to the piano that hadn't been tuned. But it was close. It was so close it didn't matter. It's rock and roll anyway. But I mean, these are, you got to figure out what's going on. And troubleshooting is the thing that people, a lot of people aren't very good at it.
Well, signal flow, that's another important one. You got signal flow is, I don't know if they teach that in school now. I hope they do.
Yeah. No, all those things are all part of I don't know.
Well, they're probably teaching, signal flow inside a laptop maybe, but.
Yeah, exactly.
But that's how you know to look behind something and figure out why something's not working.
Yep.
So crucial. And then I guess the other part of it is just turn everything off and restart.
Well,
that didn't exist with consoles.
If you have a computer, yes, but yeah. So I mean, I have to turn off the SSL computer every now and then. Just type in begin, or I have to go in the other room and hit the button. So I mean, if you got a computer. I mean, I had to restart mine earlier today for some reason. Something wasn't working right. And I was just like, God dang it, But yeah, exactly.
So, we're joking about the Peter Jackson thing because the Beatles, remixing with John Lennon's and extracting his voice from the tape. Think on that topic, do you have any thoughts about, where you see things heading in music with technology? And do you give a shit about AI and music?
Well, I think
really
you kind of have to give a shit about it, because, record labels don't really care about making good music. They don't really care. They only care about selling music. Doesn't have anything to do with it being good. It just has to sell. So if they can build an algorithm, and they've done it, that can make pop stars without there being real pop stars that are owned wholly by Universal or Warner or whoever, they're going to do it. And they will push their weight around to get it so like those artists get into the Grammy process and, and all that. And then they can send them out on the road without a band, literally like the Gorillaz, like Gorillaz are kind of like, this cartoon band. They'll just literally send a cartoon band out. It'll just be cartoons on a screen and, screaming girls and guys or whatever, like K-pop.
ABBA's doing that now, I think, right? They're holographic.
They got holographs. But I mean, but what if it's new music? What if it's a new artist or whatever? And what if it's not? None of it is made by anything other than computers.
This podcast is proud to present Recording Studio Rockstars Academy. Are you ready to take your recording, mixing, and mastering to the next level and make your best record ever? Then visit the Academy to find the course that's right for you. Want to record killer drums in your home studio? Then check out Rockstars of Drums to learn how to record, edit, and mix pro-sounding drums with a professional Nashville session drummer in a Grammy-winning studio. Or if you're ready to start mastering your own records at home, then check out Rockstars of Mastering, where I walk you through exactly how I master my own records using nothing but plugins. Plus, I take you into a world-class mastering studio, Sterling Sound, to meet with Ryan Smith and hear how he professionally mastered my record, Skadoosh, for release to streaming platforms. That's the music you hear on this podcast, Rockstars. And if mixing is your focus, then check out my free mixing course, Mix Master Bundle, where I show you how to mix using stock and free plugins in Pro Tools. Plus, you get a look at how I recorded everything in my studio and multi-track downloads for you to practice mixing and even upload to your website if you want. Are you ready to make your best record ever? Then go to recordingstudiorockstars.com/academy to get started now. What's some of the most clever stuff that, that is, kind of says fuck you to the advanced technology and the labels that you see artists doing that you work with? Do you see them making moves that just make you, that was a great idea, as far as bypassing some of those channels for getting out there and reaching their fans? Maybe that's too loaded of a question, but if anything comes to mind.
It's a little loaded of a question. I think the thing I would say is that a lot of the clients I work with are somewhat independent. Obviously, I'm working with Phish. Phish owns their own label. They own their own music. They own their own masters. They own their image. They own all that stuff. They can do whatever they want with it, and they do it. They put it out there. Whether you like Phish or not, it doesn't matter to me. I don't even care. But the fact of the matter is, when it comes down to indie music and indie music cred, there's a lot of bands that have some serious cred. These guys have been doing the same thing forever, and they do their deal. Their live show, there's no video, no backdrop, no screens, no TV screens. It's 4 guys on stage playing music on real instruments. They got a synth. Synth's a real instrument, but there's a guitar player, a drummer, and a bass player, and a keyboard player. And that's it. That's all there is. There's no SMPTE. There's no tracks. There's no Pro Tools playback. There's none of that. So everybody's improvising. The lighting guy is the most amazing, one of the coolest looking shows I've ever seen in my life. And technologically so advanced, and they are improvising every single bit of it. It's not a programmed show. It is all improv. The music's all improv within frameworks of songs. They do their deal. I've seen them do an hour and 30 minutes in one song. Okay, a lot of people would rather shoot themselves in the dick than hear that. But you know what? So what? These people love it. You know, some people love it. Some people want to see Guided by Voices. They'll play 100 songs. They're all a minute and 20 seconds long. That's completely cool too. I know people who would rather die than go see that. But, you know, but the beauty of music is it can be all those things. You know, you could have a guy like Chris Stapleton. He stands in one place. He sings to his wife with a 4-piece or 5-piece band around him. There's no pyro. There's no SMPTE. There's no Pro Tools. You know, every year we do the CMAs. Every year we're the only act without Pro Tools. Now, what does that tell you? You know, the guy's real. He does his thing. He is totally and utterly real. And that's what I strive for. I just finished work with C6 Steve. You know, Steve's 74 years old. He plays a 3-string guitar. He's got a 70-year-old drummer. And we just made this record. And, you know, it's really, really great. Carmen Rojas from David Bowie played on Let's Dance, played bass on it. Luther Dickinson played guitar on it. I mean, it's badass. It's the real thing. Is it locked to a grid? Fuck no. Is it in, like, it's funny. He would go, what key is this in? And Steve would be like, A-ish, you know? And sure enough, it would be in A-ish. Because, you know, he might have tuned the cigar box guitar or he was playing his guitar with a different tuning or, you know, or whatever. All that is fine. It's all fine. I saw something on Facebook about, you know, a masterclass with some guy from here in Nashville. He was a songwriter, producer guy, and it was all clips, grid, copy and pasting. Like his whole pitch for the masterclass was a masterclass in absolutely everything I fucking hate. I am sure he's a nice guy. I have no idea. I don't know him. I'm sure he's a nice guy. I hope he's very successful. It's just not me. I just am not going to do that. Have I ever cut things to a grid? Yes. Have I had to? Yes. Why is that? Well, usually the drummer sucks. So yeah, we put a grid up and then we edited some things around it. But as far as like, okay, I'm going to take these 4 bars and that's the whole verse. And then these 4 bars are the whole chorus. And then these 4 bars here are the whole verse, except for this one bar. And then that's this bar that goes into the, you know, I'd rather get a gun, shoot myself in the dick.
That's DJ Vance right there.
Yeah, I just know. Which is strange because I kind of like electronic music. So there. But that's a different deal.
Yeah.
That's a different thing. That's music for a different mind frame.
I'm with you on that. I mean, I love electronic music and EDM, and when I sit down to mess around with it, I just want to pick up a guitar instead a lot of times.
I mean, one of my favorite bands is LCD Sound System, and they're not an EDM band. They're just a band playing electronic, sometimes instruments, but drums and guitars and all that. But like, I love the fact that they don't have a computer up there. There's not a master controller running everything. They're all playing. And I love that. And I love the fact there's kind of a woolly, 50th-year-old dude running around in a robe singing cool shit and with making up cool shit.
Glasses with flashlights on them.
Yeah, or something. Whatever's going on. I think it's cool.
The classic look.
Yeah.
All right, Vance. Give us a little insight into you. What's a non-music related hobby for you that people might be surprised to find out about?
I wish I had one, to be honest with you. Traveling, I think.
Sunday off.
I think traveling. We loved my wife and I and my daughter. We just got back on this trip. I love to travel, man. I love to see places. I love to think about a life elsewhere.
I guess this is an unfair question to follow that with, but what would be the most unusual place you'd love to go make a record or record, even if it was just recording in the world?
Well, done it in Norway. I didn't make a record in Iceland, but I almost did. England,
would you be interested in outdoor, like field recording kind of stuff ever?
Like in a field? Yeah, I've done that.
Like
I've actually recorded in a field. So yeah, Yeah, no, I think that'd be great. I mean, I'd love to. I've been to Africa. I've been to Brazil. I've been to Buenos Aires. I've been to Colombia. I'd like to go to Morocco. That'd be cool.
How often do you get to record stuff in another place and then come back and hear it again on the speakers
maybe
back
once
at home
a year.
base?
Maybe once a year, once or twice a year.
Is it kind of a cool experience to just hear these other locations coming out of your home studio speakers? I mean, your
sometimes,
home
yeah.
base studio.
The record we did in Norway was awesome. This is not a plug, but I'm going to plug, I guess, Trinoff. I have a Trinoff here in the building.
Mm-hmm.
And, I just took my curve that I came up with here that I like, and they had one there, and we put it in. And when I came home, everything translated perfect, which is kind of
that's wild.
Kind of how it's supposed to go. So, and I have one in the truck. The Phish truck has one. And I just sent about $100,000 worth of gear to the truck to the barn in Vermont, and I sent my other one. I have a spare one. I sent it to up there. So
this is the microphone that looks like the.
It's four mics, but that's the mic. But then there's a head unit.
Yeah, it looks like when I was growing up, you look in the back of the comic books and they sell you the ad for the sea monkeys, the king of the sea monkeys.
Yeah, it's a sea monkey microphone. Yeah, it's really great.
All right, man. So let's see here. Let me hit you with just these closing questions. Anything? What do you want to say about organization in the studio right now? Anything new for you that just helps keep shit together?
Nope. Cohen is currently doing an inventory, and he's doing it on iPad with numbers, and it saves to my iCloud drive, and so I can look at it and go, oh yeah, I used to have 3 of those, but I sold one of them, so take one off, and nice. Or whatever. But yeah, no, I got nothing. I got nothing.
Right. How about something physical hardware? Something you're excited about? Anything new?
I ordered, but have not got the new Benson Echo Rec pedal.
Oh, nice. Wasn't the Benson was one of those, like, was it a steel, like a metal disc? It just prints
right there.
I can't really.
That's the real one. It's right there, right above my head. It's right there. See my finger?
Right on. Yeah.
Yeah. So Benson Echo Rec is a ferrite coated wheel, and you put the head up close to it, and it records on the wheel. That's the sound that's David Gilmour's sound. And I have one, and they were made in Italy. And so just like everything in Italy, it sounds great till it breaks, and it always breaks. But these are new ones. These are new. They're built here in the States, and they're being built. They weren't cheap. It was $1,700 or $1,800. And but it's stereo in, stereo out. And it's, I'm really looking forward to it, but I don't have it yet. So there. Other than that, I haven't bought anything. Oh, I did get one thing. I bought one of the new M49s, the Neumann, and it is stellar.
Right on.
I bought a couple more. I
don't know if I've used it. Which is the one that has the red jewel in it? That's it.
That's it. Yeah. M50 is the other one's the white jewel. That's an Omni.
It looks like Corla Pandit, the organ player with the little headdress on.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I don't know what you're talking about.
All right. Never mind. All right. Anything cool in the software? Anything in the computer? Something fun?
Don't even talk to me about that. I hate it all. So. Yeah.
Fair enough. All right. Well, then let's hit the closing question.
Yep.
You've answered it like a bazillion times already. We're going to take the Wayback Studio machine. You get to go back in time and say, look, Vance, here's the single most important thing you need to know to be a rock star of the studio yourself. What advice you feel like going back and giving yourself?
Patience.
Especially with Lidge on this freaking podcast.
Yeah, he keeps calling me. Hey, at least we didn't talk for 3 hours. Only 2.
No, that's true. We talked for a long time last time, I think, didn't we?
Yeah, I think it was a couple times I went to your studio. It was like 3.5 hours. But now I got to go because I got to finish this mix. I got to finish mixing this whole entire record. So
Thank you so much, dude. We appreciate all the great work you're doing for music.
You got it.
We'll talk to you soon, dude.
All right,
Thanks
see
for
you,
listening,
man.
Rockstars.
Bye.
Cheers. Thanks so much for listening to Recording Studio Rockstars. If you enjoyed the show and want to help make it better, then please share this episode with your friends on social media and leave a rating and review on iTunes to help the podcast reach more rock stars like yourself. You can click directly over to iTunes or go to rsrockstars.com/review for an easy explanation. And remember to hit the subscribe button to keep up with weekly episodes. And if you're ready to make your best record ever now, then head over to Recording Studio Rockstars Academy, where you can start with my free course at mixmasterbundle.com. Thanks so much for listening, and thanks for being a rock star. I'm Lid Shaw, and this is Recording Studio Rockstars. Now, go make great music. Recording Studio Rockstars would like to give a big thank you to our amazing sponsors who help make this episode possible: Lewitt, Grace Design, Adam Audio, Native Instruments, and Isotope. And remember, at isotope.com and nativeinstruments.com, use the coupon code ROCK10 for 10% off any plugin purchase. If you enjoyed Recording Studio Rockstars, then please check out our sponsors using the links in our show notes below, because it's a great way to help support this show. These are all things I highly recommend for your studio because they're going to help you make your best record ever. I would also like to thank our fantastic team here at Recording Studio Rockstars: Vlad Weselchenko, Braden Stremming, and Liz Hulitskaya. Thanks so much for listening, Rockstars, and we'll see you in the next episode. Cheers.